Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. So yesterday we saw a bundle here that anything that has a cause, the karana, the cause for anything is satya, and the karya is mithya. Karya is the effect. Just read one paragraph here. So the object, Vishaya of the Sat Buddhi is Satya. Therefore, the amness in I am, Aham Asmi, the are-ness in you are, Tvam Asi, and the isness in he is, Saha Asti, and that is, Tad Asti, are all one and the same. The isness that each implies is the common basis for all things that exist. Therefore, it is the Karana, the cause for everything, and is called Satya. And the effect, Karya, is called Asat, Mithya, because it is dependent on the Karana for its existence. As mentioned earlier, Vedanta is nothing but a discussion of this cause and effect, Satya and Mithya, Karana Karya Vada. I will read this existence is consciousness one more time so we get the train of thought. Therefore, Sat is always only Chit Atma, and the word Satya can only mean Chit. Self existent consciousness alone can be Sat. Either word, Sat or Chit, will bring in the other word because what has to be Chit has to be Sat, and what has to be Sat has to be Chit. Thus, the Sat will bring in Chit, and Chit will bring in Sat. So, that which is existent, self existent, is Satya. But who is knowing it that it is self existent? That knowledge principle is that chit. So they go hand in hand because everything depends upon the Sat Chit. Sat Chit becomes limitless. Ananta Ananda. The word Ananta means limitless, and consciousness is Ananta. It is also said to be Ananda. People are always looking for Ananda. If everything depends upon Sat Chit, is there any limitation for Sat Chit Atma? There is no limit because everything is Sat Chit Atma. Therefore, from the standpoint of the Sat Chit Atma, there is no distance between itself and everything else, nor is anything separate from it. In any cognition, the subject is Sat Chit Atma, the object is Sat Chit Atma, and the means of knowledge, the thought, vritti, is also Sat Chit Atma. All three are Sat Chit Atma alone. Thus, Sat Chit Ananda is the Swarupa of the Atma. Sat is not going to be non existent at any time. And Asat cannot be kept as it is because it is constantly changing. Sat is the meaning, the content of the Sat Buddhi, and the content of the Asat Buddhi is name and form. When we say the pot is, the chair is, the table is, the man is, the woman is, the tree is, the is in all of them is the Sat Buddhi. That is common and is always qualified by the name and form called tree, pot, table, chair, and so on. Why do we say name and form? Because whatever you consider depends on something else, which depends on something else, and so on. Whenever we say something is, the is the basis, the satya, and the nama rupa is mithya, depending on this sat. The object, Vishaya of the Sat Buddhi is Satya. Therefore, the amness in I am, Aham Asmi, the are-ness in you are, Tvam Asi, and the isness in he is, Saha Asti, and that is, Tadasti, are all one and the same. The isness that each implies is the common basis for all things that exist. Therefore, it is the Karana, the cause for everything, and is called Satya. And the effect, Karya, is called Asat, Mithya, because it is dependent on the Karana for its existence. As mentioned earlier, Vedanta is nothing but a discussion of this cause and effect, Satya and Mithya. Karana Karyavada, a product and its cause. A product, a creation, a karya, a vikara is entirely dependent upon satya, that which is self existent. If satya itself depended upon something else, it would not be satya. The self existent satya is called karana, cause. Depending on what it is you want to prove, karana can also be said to be satya. Yet karanam tat satyam. That which is a cause is said to be Satya because it is a cause, like clay with reference to a pot. Because clay is the cause for the pot, it is Satya, but only for the pot. Please understand. Another example is thread as the cause or Satya for the cloth. Thus, from these two examples, we see that Satya is Karana and Karana is Satya. With reference to a product, a creation, we are going to prove something. In Shankara's Bhashya on this verse, he says that a product is Mithya. Yat karyam tat Mithya. Mithya means asat, the word used in the current verse. These kinds of statements reflect a style that we will be coming across later. A product is Mithya because it is dependent upon a cause, as is the case for cloth. Whereas Sat is not dependent upon anything else and undergoes no change whatsoever. Sataha abhavaha na vidyate. Because the object of Sat Buddhi is Sat and the object of Asat Buddhi is Asat, we have the Sat Buddhi at all times. The Asat Buddhi depends upon the Sat Buddhi. The object of the Asat Buddhi, the pot, depends upon the object of Sat Buddhi, clay, which itself depends upon something else. When you say clay is, the clay depends upon another Sat Buddhi, atoms. When you say the atom is, the atom depends upon particles, which depend upon a concept. When you say a concept is, the concept depends upon the witness of the concept, Sakshi, which is consciousness. And when you say consciousness is, what does it depend upon? It does not depend upon another consciousness because it is Svata Siddha, self existent. Therefore, nothing can be Satya except that which is self existent. This is all that is being said here. That which is self existent is Atma, and that alone is Satya. Everything else, being dependent upon Satya, is Asat. For the Satya Atma, there is no non existence, Abhava, whereas for the Asat, there is no real existence. The experience of seeing objects is there, but these objects are all in the transactional world, Vyavahara, and therefore have only an empirical reality. About these two, Sat and Asat, a final understanding, an ascertained conclusion, the ultimate knowledge is arrived at by the seers of the truth of Brahman. Tattvadarshibhihi anayoho ubayoho api antaha tu drishtaha. The Tattvadarshi is the one who is capable of seeing the truth, Tattva of everything. Tattva is the abstract form of the pronoun Tat. The pronoun Tat means that and can stand for anything from apple to zebra, as indicated by the word in Sanskrit for pronoun Sarvanama, meaning the name for everything. Therefore, the word Tattva means the truth, the intrinsic nature of a thing, anything. Shankara further explains its meaning by saying, because all that is here is only Brahman, the name for that Brahman is Tat. The abstract noun of Tat, Tattva, means the truth, the Swarupa of Brahman. So I'll just read the footnote. Tasya bhavaha tattvam. The nature of a thing is called Tattva. Tat iti sarvanama. Sarvam cha Brahma. Tasya nama tat iti. Tad bhavaha tatvam. Brahmanaha yathatyam. Yathatmyam. Tat is the name for everything. That is, it includes everything. This is because Brahman is everything, and it is called Tat here. The nature of this Tat, that is Brahman, is called Tattva, the true nature of Brahman. Here Shankara uses the etymological meaning of the word Sarvanama to his advantage to define Brahman. Here the word Sarvanama is not a pronoun. So, thus, those people who know the truth of Brahman, Tattva Darshinaha, understand both Sat and Asat. Both must be known. Sat is Sat and Asat is Asat. Asat depends upon Sat, but Sat does not depend upon Asat. Those who know the truth of everything, Tattva Darshinaha, are called Panditas, the ones who, as we saw earlier, do not come to grief. Why? Because they know the truth. Now, why are you sad? Is it due to Asat or Sat? If you say you are sad because Asat is going, you must see that going is the nature of Asat, and that is not real. Therefore, you cannot cry for the Asat. When one's understanding of Satya is lacking, then Mithya becomes Satya, resulting in confusion. Without Satya, there is no Mithya. Mithya must be understood as Mithya and Satya as Satya. Only then does everything fall into its own place. Satya does not elicit any sorrow, and Mithya does not have the status to cause sorrow. If there is sorrow, it is Mithya. So we'll just pause here before we move on to the next one. So let's just share our understanding of this Karana Karyavada. This is the basis of Vedanta. The whole of Vedanta is nothing but this Karana Karyavada. So let us all share our understanding in at least one line. The two paragraphs we read was the existence is consciousness, and then a product and its cause.
Today, the meaning of Sat was very, I could know it. Yesterday, I missed that part.
Which one?
Satchit.
Satchit.
Yeah.
Chit is that knowledge principle. How are we knowing it? How do we know what is now spoken? With what are we able to understand? That knowing principle, that knowledge principle is Satya. Is Chit.
That is, I know. So I is that consciousness. I know, knowing consciousness.
Yeah. Aham Brahmasmi. How do you know I am Brahma? So that knowledge that I is there, but how do you know that that I is? So basically, you cannot separate Sat and Chit. They go together. Actually, they're the same. They cannot.
Hari Om.
Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. That is the only truth, no? That I am.
Mm,
Aham asmi.
mm.
That is the only truth. So all our sufferings and everything, that is mithya. Although, as though we feel, but
Yeah,
hmm,
because that is
very
all.
good.
It does not have a real existence.
Hmm.
It is as though existing. That is why it is all mithya.
Hmm.
See, we cannot completely remove that existence from the world. There is some existence. It does have, but it is as though.
As
Hmm.
though, and I think the main difference is one thing is permanent and other is impermanent.
Mm. And the confusion is that we take what is impermanent to be permanent. That is the whole confusion. That is why we take the world to be Satya. We take the world to be Sat. So, Tattva-darshibihi, the knowers of the truth, they know both Sat and Asat. And they know the difference. Ubhayoh, anayoh, antaha, they know. Antaha is the difference. So, they know the difference between Sat and Asat. That crystal clear distinction is known to them. So that is why they don't get caught up. That is why between Krishna and Arjuna, you see a stark contrast. Whereas Arjuna has tears in his eyes and he's so crestfallen and he's just dropped his Gandiva and he's sitting down on the chariot. Krishna is just standing there smiling. That prahasanniva. So, in every situation, if we are able to just bring up that Krishna consciousness within us, which is nothing but that witness consciousness, then we can smile through all kinds of situations, whether pleasant, unpleasant, painful, pleasurable. You will see through that, see through the fleeting nature of those.
And I think until we know the Sat, at least we know this is Asat and
Hmm.
this is impermanent. At least we can rely on this. Whatever is happening, it is Asat, it is impermanent.
Hmm.
So until we know the Sat, because Jnani knows both, we have conceptually knowing this part, but
Correct.
I think Asat part we definitely know.
Hmm. We know even Asat as a concept, but when faced with a situation when See, as long as you're not affected by the situation, yes, you are in that witness space, and then you're not affected by it. But every time we get entangled, say the mind is affected or the ego is affected, then there is that confusion that is reigning high. It is because of that confusion that we think it's I am affected, I am angry, I am sad.
But there is a solace that this will end, this is impermanent. With experience, we have gotten to know this. That,
Mm.
isn't it?
Mm.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
No,
correct.
with
Correct.
experience, every experience, when we are sad, there is a happiness waiting for
Yeah.
us. So this is asat. Asat is impermanent. That, at least with the experience, we have gotten to know that.
So tattva is the nature of anything. Tattva is the nature of Brahman. So tat is actually a pronoun, and it can mean, it can stand for anything. But Shankara takes it further. Sarvanama, he explains that as the nature of Brahman. Because all that is here is only Brahman. The name for that Brahman is Tat. So the nature of Brahman is the truth of Brahman. This is where we've read this also. So Brahman is the cause of the world, Jagat Karana, and at the same time is itself Satya, Jnana, and Ananta. This then is the Swarupa of Brahman and is called Tattva. Brahman is not only Satya, but is the Karana for everything. Therefore, everything is Brahman. Brahman plus all names and forms is all that is here. Yeah. So, moving on, the confusion between Satya and Mithya. There is a well known story that illustrates the confusion between Satya and Mithya. It is as follows. In the court of a particular king, there were two scholars. One was an Advaiti who said that Brahman was Satya and the world Jagat was Mithya. He talked about this constantly. Vedanta being nothing but a discussion of Satya and Mithya, cause and effect, Karana Karyavada. He told the king that Karana was Satya and Karya was Mithya. The whole world, including one's body, was Karya and therefore Mithya. There was nothing away from that Brahman, and that Satya, Brahman, was independent of everything. The king did not understand what the scholar was saying, but he liked the idea. There was a fascinating aspect to it because it said he it said that he was wonderful, that he was Brahman, and so on. The king found this pleasant to get up to each morning. It was good for his mental health at least. The second scholar was a dualist, Dvaiti, who kept telling the king that he was not Brahman, that Brahman was the cause of the world, Jagat Karana, and that he was a product, subject to punya and papa. If he did the right things, he would gain some time in heaven, and if he did not, he would go to more unpleasant places such as Naraka. This scholar maintained that what he was saying was the truth, as stated in the Shastra. He even backed up his statements by quoting Vedanta in his daily teaching. The king listened to both of these scholars because he wanted to be impartial, although he generally slept in the second scholar's class. This made the second scholar a little jealous of the other one, who seemed to be getting more attention from the king. The time came when the king went on a big pilgrimage accompanied by a large retinue, including his two teachers. As they walked through a forest which was infested with many wild animals, they were confronted by a huge elephant with enormous tusks. The first scholar spied the elephant first and cried out, "Elephant, Maharaj, elephant." He then began to run, and of course, everyone else ran too. It should be remembered that these Advaitis are all very alert people, and because they understand things as they are absolutely practical also. Because they are not encumbered by projections, problems, or shadows, they are free to deal with things objectively. And so the scholar was the first to see the elephant and run. The king also ran, along with the Dvaiti and the others. After this adventure was over, the king decided to camp and start out again the next day, when there had been time to check for safety. While the king was relaxing, the second scholar went to him and said, "O Lord, did you see how our Advaita Guru ran?" The king remarked that he indeed had run very well. In fact, he reached safety before any of the others. "That's what I mean," said the Dvaiti. "He says the world is mithya, and yet he ran away from the elephant. If this world is mithya, then the elephant must also be mithya. Why did he run from a mithya elephant? Everything he has been teaching is all so much verbal nonsense. That is why, Maharaj, I told you that there is no mithya. Everything is satya." The second scholar then pressed his point a little further. "I do not understand his running, given what he teaches. Perhaps Maharaj understands it better." The king also found that it did not make sense to him. So he summoned the first scholar and asked him to explain himself. Out of respect for his teacher, the king gave him an opportunity to explain himself. He said, "Sir, you said everything is mithya. Therefore, the elephant is also mithya, is it not?" The scholar agreed that this was correct. "Then why did you run away from the elephant?" the king asked. "Maharaj," the scholar replied, "the elephant is indeed mithya. But when did I tell you that running was satya? Running is also mithya. Please find any sorrow or fear in me. There is none. I just did what was to be done." This is the vision. Vedanta says that everything is satya from the standpoint of the Sat Buddhi, and everything is mithya from the standpoint of the Asat Buddhi. The vision does not exclude anything. We have to understand everything. Any action, karma, is mithya. For example, we talk of running as an action, but we do some inquiry into this so called action. We see that we cannot categorically say what is running, whether lifting the leg is running or placing the foot is running. We cannot say. This is true of any action. Therefore, it is all mithya. The person performing the action, the karta, is mithya, as is the action kriya. Therefore, the whole thing is mithya. Only Atma is Satya. Once you see both Satya and Mithya very clearly, as the Panditas do, there is no reason for sorrow. Lord Krishna has shown that what is Sat, self-existent, does not have abhava at any time, meaning that there is no end, no non-existence for it. Satah abhavaha na vidyate. And asat being only a name and form, depending upon the sat, has no real bhava, no real being. Therefore, it is mithya. We've read the story again, right? Several times. So it is the distinction between what the Advaita talks of and what Dvaita talks of. And how, in spite of being an Advaiti, you still do what is to be done. You need to be, you're practical. Only difference is there is no sorrow, there is no fear.
Jai Gurudev, I think you should be, Advaiti, and then when you're living, you should be Advaiti. Right?
I think you continue to be an Advaiti, understanding what Sat and Asat is. Correct, you need to see the distinction between things, but then see, Advaita philosophy says that Jiva is not Brahman. Brahman is Satya, yes. Jiva is subject to Papa Punya. And depending upon how much Papa, how much Punya he does, he goes to either hell or heaven. They don't equate Jiva to Brahman. So rather than say, live like a Dvaiti, which actually honestly may be confusing because we are not following the Dvaita philosophy here. But I know, I get in essence what you're saying. In essence, what you're saying is that you see distinction between different things. You're not seeing the oneness in everything. So oneness in everything should be right behind as the screen, and on top of that we function, which is what Gurudev was saying. There are three types of perceiving the world. One is tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. The sattvic is the one that says the oneness in everything, like the Advaita. You see only the oneness. Whereas the rajasic is the one where you see distinction. You see one as different from the other. Tamasic is to be totally unaware of, to be indifferent, to be unaware of this. So, like you said rightly, when we're living in the world, transactional world, we have this, we see one thing different from the other. Like the first scholar saw the elephant as different from him, and he knew he had to run for safety. But he knows that that is all mithya, including the action of running. But he did what was to be done. Only difference was he did not do it out of fear or sorrow. Let's all share our thoughts before we go on to the next one. So that's why every action is also mithya. Which is true, right? In running, what is termed running? Is it lifting your leg or putting your leg down on the floor, lifting the other leg? It's in a flux. You can't say which is running. So when you extrapolate it to all the actions that we do, including the action of sleeping, getting up, dreaming, but then do we refrain from doing any action? No. Being in the world, you have to act. That karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana na karma phalaheturbuhu nate sangostva karmani. Don't get attached to inaction. Don't say, oh, the world is all mithya, so what is the need for me to act? Don't get attached to inaction. When there is a need for action, you pretty well get up and do your action. So the person performing, the karta, the kriya are all mithya. Only Atma is Satya. So the inexplicability of mithya. What is mithya then? It is neither bhava nor abhava. It does not have an existence on its own, nor is it totally non-existent. It is something in between, which is what we mean when we say that mithya is inexplicable. There are others who say that reality, the vastu or sat, is inexplicable. The vision of Vedanta is just the opposite. Only the vastu can be unfolded, albeit by implication, and everything else is inexplicable. Very important lines, because we try as much as we want to, we cannot understand ignorance. We cannot understand mithya. We cannot understand maya. But what can be understood is the satvastu, is atma, satya. Can truth be defined? It is generally thought that truth cannot be defined, whereas we say that truth alone can be defined. Everything else can be only conditionally defined and so requires further definition. Therefore, any definition of an object which is asat, mithya, is a point of view subject to further definition. Being neither sat, existent, nor tucha, totally non existent, how can mithya be defined? There is no explicability for mithya. That there is no explicability is its explanation. We are not just getting lost in mithya and then saying it is not explainable at all. It is inexplicable in the sense that it cannot categorically be defined as this is Satya, because our definition of Satya is that which is not negated at any time. Because what is never negated at any time is Satya. You cannot say that an object such as a pot is Satya, because it did not always exist. I repeat this. Because what is never negated at any time is Satya, you cannot say that an object such as a pot is Satya because it did not always exist. Furthermore, it may be broken tomorrow. Nor is it always the same pot, since yesterday it was in one form and today it is in another. The pot is also not tuchcha, totally non existent, because if it were non existent, it would not be perceived or known to hold any water. There is therefore such a thing as a pot. Between Sat and Tuchcha, therefore, there is a reality which is referred to as Asat. In fact, the technical word for Asat is generally Mithya. Although the words Asat, Mithya, and Maya are all used in the Shastra, the ontological definition for this order of reality is Mithya. What is not subject to negation in all three periods of time, past, present, and future, is Satya. And that which does not exist at all in all three periods of time is Tuchcha. Therefore, what is in between becomes Mithya or Asat. So we'll take up the next verse tomorrow. We'll stop here and do Manana. So there are three orders of reality. One is Satya, which is truth existent, which exists in all three states, which cannot be negated, and which is self existent. That is what is. Then you have Tuchcha, which is on the other extreme, which is totally non existent. And examples of Tuchcha we have was the man's horns, or the rabbit's horns, or the son of a barren woman. These are all Tuchcha. They don't exist in all three periods of time. Whereas what is Mithya? That is the order of reality which is in between Satya and Tuchcha. See, the world is non-existent in our deep sleep, whereas it comes into full existence when we are awake. And it is as though there even during our dream, because some part of it comes up in the dream. So therefore, Mithya is something that is not there in all the three states, but it is as though there. See, that is why pot is not tuchcha. Pot is mithya. It is there. It has some reality in the sense that is why you're able to fill water in the pot. But is pot satya? When it was in the clay form, it is not satya, right? Because it was in only as a lump of clay. So the pot is not existent throughout all three states. It has a birth. So anything that has a birth will have death, will be destroyed. So anything that is born cannot be Satya. Satya is something that is ajaha, birthless, that which is existent, eternal. So anybody wants to share before we close? So the verse was the 16th verse. नासतो विद्यते भावो ना भावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः. And the next verse is Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinashamavyyasyasya na kaschit kartumarhati. The meaning of this is, know that by which this entire world is pervaded to be indeed indestructible. No one can bring about the destruction of the one that does not change. Because what was the topic of discussion was revolving around death. So Krishna brings Arjuna's awareness to saying, this cannot be destroyed. So we'll see this tomorrow. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Meditation is accepting this moment, living every moment totally with depth. Let us keep our spine erect and body relaxed and eyes closed. Relax your shoulders. Keep a big smile on your face. You're sitting like the statue of Buddha, very serene and with a serene smile on your face. Relax your body. Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. Become aware of your chest region, throat and chest region. If you notice some tension in the body, just let it be. Accept those parts of the body where you feel a tension. The other parts are in comfort. Other parts are at peace. Become aware of that also. There are many good things about you and inside of you. Acknowledge them. They will never leave you. And the negative aspect you may see in you is never going to stay with you forever. They are all guests for some time. Let them be. Sit with the total acceptance of yourself the way you are at this very moment. Total acceptance of what is now here will lead us to deeper meditation. Let go of all the efforts. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let go of all your effort and be in this emptiness. And slowly and gradually become aware of body and surroundings. And you may gently open your eyes.